Hey everyone, Desai here, and I spent the last almost 2 years learning how to make my own trading card game. Last time I showed you the workflow of how I use my template file and what can be made with it, and I promise to get into more details later on. So today I will show you my workflow with creating and designing the backgrounds for my cards. Of course, this being essentially a piece of art, there are millions of ways to do this. So once again, this is just a simple guide on a few ways to create these. And even I rarely reuse the same approach twice. But there are some stuff and some workflows that apply from one to another. And just to make sure, we are talking about this part of the card. If you are interested in the rarity background, for printing purposes that's just simply one solid color, or I guess you can use a gradient or something like that. And you can create it just like this. Select a new layer, name it properly, select bucket fill, and fill the whole layer with one color of your choice. As I said before, I guess you can use a gradient or something like that. That should be fine. And if you're scratching your head as to why that might be, please refer to my previous video where I touch on the reasons why that is and what the printing process requires. The video is linked in the description, also should be on the screen right now, and it's also in the playlist that's associated with this video. Anyway, back to the main topic. For starters, we are gonna need base textures. I prepared 4 textures for this video. One I made from scratch a while ago for my own game called Walker of Aldenor, and it's a simply yellowish paper background I created a while back and reused this one in various games over the years. Like the notable one is Games Defenders. The second one is wood texture. That's a free for personal and commercial use texture I simply downloaded from an image bank. Third one is a piece of paper, and I simply crumbled a piece of paper, laid it flat on my table and took a photo of it. And because we are living in the year 2026 and beyond, and we have an AI at our disposal, I also got myself generic wild animal leather generated. These are the 4 main approaches that can be used to get any kind of texture for your projects. It's either making it yourself from scratch, which usually takes the most time and effort, or getting someone else to do it for you via commission or via stock site or image bank, which takes a lot of time to find the right one or takes some money to get someone to do it in the desired quality. Or the last one is of course using the generative AI, which will always be a compromise in quality and the desired outcome. Anyway, from now on, we gotta import the textures into the GIMP project as a separate layers and name them and organize them correctly into the correct layer groups to keep the project organized. From there, the very first things we need to do is to check how the texture works with the art and the rest of the card. To do so, we want to apply a layer mask. So use the fuzzy select tool and get the selection from the existing background. Click right on the texture layer, select add layer mask, then go into the select menu and click on invert. From there, select bucket fill tool, black color, and fill the selected area inside the layer mask. If you don't have an existing background as a template for your selection and you don't want to use the layout from my public template, now is the perfect time to create your own background template and layout. But honestly, that's beyond the scope of this video because there is quite a lot that goes into it, so I might make a separate video about that topic later on. Anyway, now we should have a background shape texture like this. You might find out that it's perfect as is, or it might still need some work. I usually like to go from there and completely desaturate the layer so I can play with my own colors. Because this one specifically is background for my instant cards and now I would like it to be more yellowish brown. So I'm going into colors and then colorize. Then I'm going to select some yellowish brown color that's not too red. And I will play around with it to see what works the best and then I'm going to use that. Then I play around with the rarity to see how it corresponds to the various backgrounds and rarity frames, because the background won't be used with just the perfectly matching one all the time. And I didn't like how it worked with the green outlines, so I used the colorize option again and gave it a little bit darker color again which I like. And this is kinda it. I'm kinda happy with this one. So once again, I will do the same for the paper texture now. And I gotta drop it into the correct layer group, add a layer mask and play around with it. I like the texture in combination with the event cards, so that's where I will try to use it. The cold blue paper texture isn't cutting it, so once again I will desaturate it to grayscale and then use the colorize option to make it more purple to represent the nature of the events group, which will be the group of cards this one has to represent. And once again, I like to check it again against other rarities to see how the colors blend together, and the purple one might be a bit too purple. But you know what? I doubt there will be many purple cards in this specific group because my plan is to either have tier 5 or tier 3 of these, so these won't be purple at all. But that's something you gotta think through yourself and decide whether or not it's worth future-proofing, and if so, how much. That should dictate these decisions. Ultimately, I played with the colors for a while before deciding to stick with the bluish purple I picked originally. Anyway, let's do one more real quick. I need to finish the infrastructures group of cards before calling it a day, and for those I would like to use a wood texture. Again, I drop it in. This time it's a bit too big, so I have to resize it and move it around to fit what I'm aiming at. But the texture itself is too detailed for the cards. So once again I'm going to desaturate it and play around with it. Maybe I will find a way to decrease the details a little bit. Then I decided to add a gray color, and because the texture is still a bit too detailed for my taste, I added Gaussian blur in order to blend some of it together. Now with any kind of blur I'm running risk of having the cards turn out bad when printed, because blur can mean bad quality for our eyes. For that reason, let's use the last texture and we will create an alternative background I can then use in case I don't like this one when it gets printed. And real quick, I do all these steps I did before many times, and I gotta say, I like this one a bit more than the wooden texture one. But that doesn't matter for now because only the printed version will tell the truth of which version turns out the best. I wish I had some printed cards right now to show you, but the reality of card design and card game development is that half of the time you are waiting for your cards to arrive from the printer. And in my case, the printer is on the opposite side of the world. So that being said, that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, I hope this helped someone, and I'm gonna catch you next time. See ya.